73 years in this world and 45 of them in this very house, I seem to know every crevice in the floorboards and every creak in the floorboards. In Grantsville, they know me as Old Man Hampshire, or just Ronald. The locals are used to seeing me every Wednesday at the bookstore on Maple Street, where I go through the new arrivals and occasionally buy something noteworthy. For 32 years, I worked as an editor at the Grantsville Literary Review, a small but respected magazine, until I retired 5 years ago. That same year, I lost Vivian. My house now seems too big. 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, a spacious living room with a fireplace and a terrace overlooking a small but manicured garden. It was once the sound of Vivian and little Benji's laughter. Now in the mornings I brew coffee just for me, strong coffee, as Vivian never liked it. I have breakfast on the terrace, weather permitting, even in winter. I read the newspaper from cover to cover, paper, even though my son has offered me a tablet more than once. Every day is scheduled by the hour, not because I'm a pedant, but not to go crazy from silence. Twice a week I play chess with Oliver Lancaster, a former bank clerk. Mondays I go to the local library, where I help catalog old books. The rest of the time I dig in the garden, read or work on a memoir I'll never finish. That all changed last month when Benjamin called. "Dad, I need to have a serious talk with you." His voice sounded strained. Allison and I were in a difficult situation. Benjamin is 41. He works as a paralegal for a small firm specializing in civil cases. 3 years ago, he married Allison Radford, who is 12 years younger than him. I've seen her 6 or 7 times in all that time. A spectacular woman with a cool stare and a professional smile. She works in real estate, sells houses she can hardly ever afford. "What's wrong, Benji?" I was the only one still calling him by his childhood name. "Allison got downsized, and I got a delayed promotion." He was quiet. "We had to cancel the lease. You see, we thought she'd find a new job quickly, but the real estate market right now," I realized before he could ask. "Do you need a place to stay?" I asked him straight out. "Just for a couple months until we get back on our feet. You know I'm always—" "Sure, Benji," I interrupted. "I've got 4 bedrooms and only one old man to occupy them. Come on over." The decision seemed natural to me. Vivian would approve. They arrived 3 days later, in her bright red car, loaded with boxes. Allison looked tense and a little embarrassed, but kissed me politely on the cheek. "Thank you for your hospitality, Ronald. We really appreciate your help." "It won't be for long, Father," Benjamin hugged me. "A couple months at the most." I showed them the room, the former guest bedroom that Vivian had once decorated in pastel colors. It was spacious, with a private bath and a view of the garden. Allison looked around the space with an appraising eye. "Very nice," she said. "It's a little old, fashioned, but we can change a few things." I smiled, deciding not to take it personally. After all, they were here to live. The first day passed in a flurry of boxes and suitcases. Allison had surprisingly brought a lot for a temporary stay. Benjamin was silent and seemed more confused about the situation than his wife. By evening, I had prepared dinner, a roast from Vivian's recipe. We sat around the old oak table and I caught myself thinking that for the first time in years there was family here again. "Delicious, Ronald." Allison blotted her lips gently with a napkin. "You're a great cook for an old man?" I grinned. "Vivian taught me. Said a man who couldn't cook a decent meal was only half a man." "Mom always said that," Benjamin nodded. "Speaking of cooking," Allison set her fork aside. "I think we should make a schedule. I can cook on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Benjamin will be on the weekends. And you, Ronald, the rest of the days. That would be fair." I nodded. It sounded reasonable. "And about the groceries," she continued. "We'll contribute our share, of course. Maybe we should make a list of preferences. I have a gluten intolerance, for example, and I prefer organic produce." "Sure," I nodded again, even though I thought it would make shopping more difficult. "Let's make a list." Benjamin looked grateful that I didn't argue. After dinner, they retired to their room. I sat in a chair in the living room, listening to the muffled voices from upstairs and the ticking of the grandfather clock. Unusual sounds in the quiet of my house. I wouldn't say unpleasant, more like strange. The next morning I woke up at 6, as was my habit. I made coffee and went out on the terrace with a cup and a newspaper. This is usually the quietest hours of the day. But today Allison, in her pink tracksuit, was already in the kitchen. "Good morning," she said, fiddling with the blender. "I hope I didn't wake you. I always get up early to make smoothies and do yoga." No, I smiled. "I'm an early bird too." She nodded and turned on the blender. A rumble cut through the morning silence. I shuddered. My peaceful morning with the newspaper seemed to be canceled. Benjamin was leaving early for work. He should be in the office by 8. Allison had been busy all day looking for a new job, so she said. I noticed her rearranging a few pictures on the mantel, moving the one of Vivian in the garden into the background. I decided not to say anything. In the evening, Benjamin returned tired. Allison was chattering about some prospective job opening. I cooked dinner for them. They had a work day. The trouble started on the third day. Ronald, Allison approached me as I was reading in the living room. Do you mind if I rearrange the furniture in the dining room? This dresser takes up too much space and the table would be better placed closer to the window. The dresser belonged to Vivian's mother. We kept old china in it, a set we only used on special occasions. Actually, I'd prefer to leave it as it is, I said softly. This dresser has sentimental value to me. She frowned. I understand, but the space could be used much more efficiently. I've worked with an interior designer when selling houses, and I know how… Allison, I interrupted. This is my house. I appreciate your ideas, but there are some things I'd like to leave unchanged. Of course, she said with a strained smile. Just trying to help. This place looks a little outdated. That evening, I noticed her whispering something to Benjamin, squinting in my direction. My son looked uncomfortable, but remained silent. By the end of the first week, I began to realize that the idea of living together might not be as easy as I had thought. Allison gradually settled in and changed little details, rearranging the books on the shelves, changing the curtains, buying new towels for the bathroom, criticizing my choice of laundry detergent. That brand is terrible for your skin, Ronald. I brought the hypoallergenic one. It's more expensive, but your portion will only be $15. I silently pulled out my wallet. Benjamin asked me every night how my day was, but there was no real conversation between us. He was clearly uncomfortable, torn between loyalty to his wife and respect for me. On Sunday morning, when I went out on the terrace with my coffee, I discovered that my chair was gone. In its place was a new garden table with 2 chairs from IKEA. Allison, I called out as I walked back into the house. Have you seen my chair from the terrace? Oh, she looked away from her laptop. I took it into the garage. It was taking up too much space, and Benji and I bought a new set. Isn't it lovely? And much more up to date. I stared at it, trying to deal with my irritation. It was the chair Vivian liked to read in on summer evenings. I wish you'd ask first before taking my things out. But it's for everyone's convenience, she shrugged. Benji agreed that the old chair was awful. Benjamin, hearing his name, came out of the kitchen. What happened? Your wife threw your mother's chair into the garage. I didn't throw it away. Allison rolled her eyes. She just moved it, and we bought new furniture. Allison, we talked about this. Benjamin looked slightly annoyed. I asked you to talk to your father first. I thought we'd already decided. She slammed the laptop shut. We talked about renovating the terrace. We talked, but we didn't decide. He turned to me. I'm sorry, Dad. We'll get the chair back. Really? Allison stood up, crossing her arms over her chest. It's 100 years old. It's ruining the whole look. I raised my hand, stopping the argument that was about to break out. Leave your chairs. I'll take the chair to my room. It was the first serious conflict, and I could feel the tension hanging in the air for the rest of the day. Benjamin apologized. Allison sulked, and I tried to remind myself that they were here temporarily, just for a couple months. 2 weeks flew by. Quiet mornings with a newspaper on the terrace had become a memory. Now every morning began with the rumble of the blender and the energetic music of Allison doing her exercises. Gradually, I started waking up earlier so I could enjoy at least half an hour of silence before she arrived. The kitchen, which had been my realm for 30 years, was now dominated by strange jars of superfoods, organic cereal, and gluten-free flour. My favorite cookies disappeared from the cupboard, supposedly for my own health. Ronald, at your age, you need to watch your diet more carefully, Allison said as she threw the bag of cookies away. So much sugar and trans fats. No wonder you have high blood pressure. My blood pressure is normal, I countered. Don't argue the obvious, she said. You can't be in perfect health at your age. I bought you some sugar, free oatmeal cookies. They tasted like cardboard. By the beginning of the 3rd week of their stay, Allison was no longer asking permission to move furniture. She was just doing it. When I returned from the library, I would find the pictures on the walls hung differently. There were new decorative pillows and old family photos tucked away in a drawer. We need to make the house look more modern, she explained when I asked about the missing photo of my wedding. These old photos create a museum, like atmosphere. Besides, I'm thinking of throwing a little party here for potential employers. A party? I couldn't hide my surprise. At my house? In our temporary home, she corrected with a smile. Networking is very important in my field, and Benjamin agrees that it's a great idea. I looked at my son standing in the doorway. He shrugged awkwardly. Allison thinks it will help her get a job faster. And when is this party? Next Friday. She was already scrolling through her phone. I made a shopping list. Don't worry, we'll organize everything ourselves. You don't even have to come down if you don't want to. I felt like I was being forced out of my own home. I silently went up to my bedroom, the only place that had remained untouched for the time being. Sat on the edge of the bed, looking at the picture of Vivian on the bedside table. What would you do in my place, darling? I whispered, touching the frame. Vivian had always been diplomatic but determined. She would find a way to talk to Benjamin without scandal. The next day I tried to catch my son alone. It proved difficult. Allison was always around, even when she was supposedly looking for work. It wasn't until she went to meet a former co-worker that I was able to talk to him. Benji, we need to discuss a situation, I began when we were alone in the living room. What situation? He pulled away from his laptop. Allison is making too many changes to the house without my consent. I understand that you need a comfortable space, but... He sighed, closing the laptop. Dad, Allison is just trying to do what's best. She's a real estate expert and knows how to create a cozy environment. This house has been cozy for the last 45 years. I tried to speak calmly. It's not about her taste, it's about respect. It's still my house. Of course it's yours. He looked guilty. Allison's just having a hard time. Losing her job had taken a huge toll on her self-esteem. Making space is a way to feel in control. At the expense of my comfort? Dad, he ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he inherited from me. Please be patient. It's only for a couple months. She's doing her best. 2 months will be up soon, Benji. Is there any progress in finding a place to live or a job? He's averted his eyes. It's tough. The real estate market is down, and my firm has frozen raises until next year. But we're working on it, I promise. I nodded, sensing that the conversation was going nowhere constructive. Benjamin had always been a soft, spoken man who avoided conflict. As a child, that trait had seemed cute, but now it had turned into a weakness. Allison's party was a real challenge. A crowd of 20 or so strangers burst into my quiet house, dressed as if they were on their way to a fashion show, not to visit an elderly man in the suburbs. Loud music, laughter, clinking glasses. I sat in my room feeling like a stranger. Around 10 p.m., I went down to get water. Allison, elegant in a tight black dress, was chatting with a tall man by the fireplace. When she spotted me, she came over quickly. Ronald, I'd like you to meet Parker Whitmore, a former colleague of mine. He's the best realtor in town. Parker, a wiry man of about 35 with a perfect smile, extended his hand to me. Nice to meet you, sir. Nice house you have here. Victorian, if I'm not mistaken? 19th century, I nodded, but with modern appliances. Houses like this are in demand. He looked around the living room with a professional eye. Especially in this neighborhood. Are you planning to sell? No. I was surprised by the question. It's a family home. Just an FYI, he winked. If you change your mind, Allison knows how to get in touch with me. I refilled my glass with water and went back to the bedroom, thinking about the strange conversation. The guests left well past midnight. In the morning, I found the living room in disarray. Empty glasses, appetizer crumbs, crumpled napkins. Allison slept until lunchtime, then came downstairs in her silk robe as if nothing had happened. Good morning, Ronald, she yawned, pouring herself a cup of coffee. The party went well, didn't it? In my mind, a great party doesn't leave such a mess, I remarked. Oh, don't worry, she waved her hand. I'll clean it up, later. Right now, I have a splitting headache. I ended up doing the cleaning, unable to stand the mess in my own house. Toward the end of their first month together, I noticed that Allison was leaving the house more and more often, explaining that she was meeting with potential employers. Sometimes she returned strangely enthusiastic and bright-eyed, but when Benjamin asked her about job interviews, she was evasive. There are a few possibilities. I don't want to jinx it. I happened to overhear a phone conversation one day as I walked by their room. Yes, of course, Parker, she said in a muffled voice. Tomorrow at 2. I'll tell him I'm going to a job interview. No, he'll be at work. The old man? Don't worry, he's usually in the library during the day. I stepped quietly away from the door, feeling vaguely uneasy. Something in her tone made me suspicious. The next day, I decided to skip going to the library. I said I wasn't feeling well and stayed home. At 2 o'clock, Allison, dressed extra carefully, announced that she was on her way to an important job interview. "Wish me luck, Ronald," she waved as she left the house. Through the window, I watched her get not into her car, but into a black BMW driven by Parker Whitmore. That evening, when Benjamin got home from work, Allison was talking about a prospective interview at a major real estate agency. I listened silently to her enthusiastic monologue, wondering if I should share my observations with my son. But without direct evidence, it would look like an old man's attempt to pick a fight with a young couple. By the 6th week of their stay, Allison had almost stopped pretending. Now she was openly criticizing everything from my habits to my surroundings. "Ronald, do you really eat eggs for breakfast every day? No wonder you have cholesterol problems." "I don't have cholesterol problems," I said for the 100th time. "At your age, that's impossible. Benji, tell your father he has to take care of his health." Benjamin, always rushing to work, only smiled guiltily. "Dad, maybe you should get a checkup for prevention. I had a complete checkup 3 months ago. Everything was fine for a man my age, but there was no point in arguing. One evening I discovered that an antique reading chair, a gift from Vivian on our 30th wedding anniversary, had disappeared from my office." "Allison," I found her in the living room, flipping through an interior design magazine. "Where did the chair from my office go?" "Oh, that horrible brown monstrosity?" She didn't even look up from the magazine. "I gave it to charity. They were just collecting furniture for the needy." I felt the blood rush to my face. "You gave away my stuff without permission." "Don't be dramatic," she turned the page. "It was taking up too much space and completely out of place. I ordered a new one, modern, ergonomic. It should arrive next week." "Allison," I tried to speak softly. "It was a gift from my late wife." "Oh," she finally looked at me, but without a shadow of remorse. "You should have told me. On second thought, you should have gotten rid of it all the more. It's unhealthy to cling to the past like that, Ronald. Vivian would want you to move on." I clenched my fists, feeling the anger boiling up inside. How dare she say what Vivian would have wanted? "You're out of line," I hissed. "I'm just trying to help," she rolled her eyes. "You don't notice how you're living in a museum of memories. It's depressing." Benjamin walked in at that moment, looking at our tense faces in surprise. "What's wrong?" "Your wife threw away the chair your mother gave me." I didn't hide my indignation. "I didn't throw it away. I gave it to the needy," Allison corrected me. "I was going to replace it with a new, more comfortable one." "Allison," Benjamin frowned. "We talked about consulting your father before." "It was old and worn," she raised her voice. "I did a favor by getting rid of it. Why are you both so obsessed with junk?" "It's not junk. It's a family heirloom," Benjamin objected. "Where did you give it away? Maybe we can get it back." "I have no idea," she dismissed it. "Some kind of church charity. And no, I'm not going to run around town looking for an old chair. That's ridiculous." I silently left the room, realizing that conversation was useless. That night I couldn't sleep for a long time, listening to the muffled quarrel of the young couple behind the wall. In the morning, Benjamin looked crumpled, and Allison looked cold and distant. "Dad," my son came up to me after breakfast. "I wanted to apologize for yesterday. Allison didn't mean to upset you." "Really?" I was skeptical. "I think that's what she's trying to do." "No," he shook his head. "She's just impulsive, and she's going through a rough patch." "Benji," I put my hand on his shoulder. "Don't you notice how she's manipulating you? How she's forcing me out of my own home?" "Dad, please," he pulled away. "Allison is really trying. She makes mistakes, but she has good intentions." "Good intentions don't throw away family heirlooms," I sighed. "Son, I'm starting to think our living together was a mistake." "Don't say that," he looked worried. "We'll find our own place soon, I promise. We just need a little more time. Maybe a little more patience on both sides." I nodded, realizing that he didn't see the situation for what it was, or doesn't want to see it. The next week, a new chair arrived, a state-of-the-art, electronically adjustable backrest. Allison installed it in my office with a triumphant smile. "See, Ronald? Isn't it better than the old one? Now your back will thank you." I sat in that chair exactly once just to make sure I hated it. It was too soft, too smart, and completely foreign, like so much else in my house, which was slowly becoming unrecognizable. 2 months went by and things didn't change. It had gotten worse. Allison was now shamelessly remodeling the house as if it were hers, not mine. Benjamin was staying late at work more and more, avoiding domestic disputes. I had become a ghost in my own house, trying to keep out of my sister-in-law's sight so as not to provoke another lecture or criticism. Tuesday began as usual, with the clatter of the blender and the sound of water in the shower. I ate breakfast in the kitchen, trying to clean up before Allison showed up. I'd planned to spend the day at the town library, but it suddenly started raining and thundering. The thunder rumbled like an artillery cannonade, and the downpour turned the streets into rivers. I canceled the trip and decided to read at home. Around 10, Allison, dressed extra carefully, in a new beige suit and flawless makeup, came out of her room with her purse over her shoulder. "Are you home today, Ronald?" There was irritation in her voice. "Yes, I decided not to go out because of the weather." "I see," she frowned. "I thought you had library on Tuesdays." "Usually," I glanced out the window at the water, "but not in a deluge like this." "Well, don't let the rain change your plans," she smiled strained. "It's good for you to get out of the house, for socialization." I only hummed in response. My socialization didn't concern her. "Where are you going in this weather?" I asked, nodding at her outfit. "I have an important meeting. Probably work." She fixed her hair. "Don't expect me for lunch." She walked out without saying goodbye. Through the window, I watched her run to her car, covering herself with her umbrella. I breathed a sigh of relief, a few hours of peace and quiet in my own home, without her constant nagging. I settled into the living room with a book, enjoying the sound of the rain and the crackling of the fireplace. For the first time in a long time, I felt comfortable. An hour later, I dozed off in my chair, lulled by the monotonous sound of droplets on the roof. I was awakened by the sound of a car pulling up. I glanced at the clock. It was the beginning of one. It was strange that Allison had gotten back so soon. Maybe the meeting had been canceled. Out the window, I saw Parker Whitmore's familiar black BMW. Allison jumped out of the passenger seat and Parker got out of the car. They ran toward the house together, sharing an umbrella and laughing like teenagers. I stepped away from the window, not wanting them to notice me. I heard the front door open, then voices in the hallway. "God, I'm soaking wet," Allison laughed. "Let's go upstairs and change." "Is there no one home?" a man's voice asked. "No, the old man has to be at the library until 3, and Benji's at work until tonight." "Great," Parker said, a chuckle in his voice. "Then I'll help you out of your wet clothes." They walked up the stairs, giggling like schoolboys. I stood in the living room, stunned. Was Allison really so shameless as to bring a lover into her father-in-law's house? To the house where she lives with her husband? I heard their bedroom door slam. Then muffled laughter, the rustle of clothes. I felt nauseous. Everything fell into place. Her frequent interviews, the mysterious meetings, the strange excitement when she returned. She was cheating on my son, in my house. For several minutes I sat in my chair, numb with shock and anger. What to do? Go up and interrupt them? Call Benjamin? Or just leave the house and come back later, pretending I didn't know anything? No. No more giving in and pretending. I stood up and walked determinedly toward the stairs. I walked up slowly, trying not to make any noise. There were unmistakable noises coming from their bedroom door. My hand hovered over the doorknob. A second of hesitation, and then a sharp twist and a push. The door swung open. Allison and Parker, naked, frozen on the bed like statues. In the bedroom where my son slept. The bed that Vivian had bought for the guest room. "Ronald!" Allison shrieked, pulling up the covers. "What are you doing here?" "I live here." My voice sounded surprisingly calm. "Unlike your buddy." Parker frantically searched for his pants. "Mr. Hampshire, it's not what you think." "Really?" I crossed my arms over my chest. "Are you rehearsing a scene from a play?" "For God's sake, Ronald." Allison had already recovered from her initial shock and was on the offensive. "You have no right to barge into our room." "My room," I corrected. "In my house, where you're cheating on my son." Parker, pulling on his pants, frantically gathered the rest of his things. "I should probably go," he muttered. "Good idea," I nodded. "And don't come back." "Parker, don't go," Allison shouted, but he was already out the door. "Coward," she said, pulling on her robe. "Ronald, this is completely unacceptable. You're invading our privacy." "Privacy?" I couldn't believe my ears. "You're having sex with another man in my son's bed, in my house, and you're talking about privacy. You don't understand," she rolled her eyes. "Benji and I have a complicated relationship. We're adults." "No, you don't understand." I could feel the anger rising inside. You're betraying the man who loves you, who let you into his life, into his family. Oh, don't lecture me, she laughed. Do you think Benji's such a saint? He hasn't touched me in months. And that's an excuse for cheating? You have no right to judge me. She raised her voice. You, with your outdated views and your patriarchal values. The world has changed, Ronald. People don't live like they did in the 50s anymore. I looked at this woman, beautiful, well, groomed, and totally unscrupulous. My daughter, in law, my only son's wife. I'm calling Benjamin, I said firmly. He must know. Try it, she stepped toward me. You'll ruin his life with your petty vindictiveness. Ia? I shook my head. I'm not the one cheating on him in his own bed. That's our problem with him. She was practically screaming. Don't interfere in our marriage. You made it my problem when you brought your lover into my house. I turned to leave. I needed to cool down, to think. What was the best way to tell my son? What to do about this situation at all? Where are you going? She followed me. Come back here at once. We're not finished. I went downstairs and she followed me, her hair disheveled and her robe open. The door slammed on the second floor as Parker hurried to leave the scene of his disgrace. Ronald! She grabbed my arm. Listen to me. You don't understand the situation. I love Benji, I really do. Parker is, it doesn't mean anything. If you love my son so much, I released my hand, then why are you cheating on him? It's complicated, she sighed. Benji's always at work. He doesn't pay any attention to me at all. And Parker, spare me the details. I held up my hand. I don't care what you think you're doing to justify your behavior. The fact is, you betrayed my son. And you, her eyes narrowed, are enjoying the situation, aren't you? You finally found a way to get rid of me. You've always hated me. Don't talk nonsense. I shook my head. I gave you a roof over your head when you needed one. I put up with your endless rearrangements and criticism. How have you repaid me? You turned my house into a place for adultery. You know what? She suddenly straightened up, glaring. You're just jealous. An old lonely man with nothing left but his memories. You can't accept that someone else can be happy while you languish in your museum of the past. I felt the blood rush to my face. How dare she talk about my life like that? About the house Vivian and I had spent years building. Out, I said quietly. What? She put her hand theatrically to her ear. Did you say something, Ronald? I said get out of my house. Pack your things and go. She laughed, loud, hysterical. You can't kick me out. I'm here with Benjamin, your son, remember? This is our home together now. No, I shook my head. This is my home, and I will not tolerate deceit and betrayal in it. Oh, I get it. She crossed her arms across her chest. You're taking advantage of the situation to get rid of me. You've wanted this from the beginning. Admit it. You hated me from day one. I didn't respond to that provocation. Instead, I headed for the stairs. Where are you going? She followed me. To pack your things, I said, climbing the stairs. If you don't want to. Don't you dare touch my things. She tried to grab my sleeve, but I dodged. I walked into their bedroom, now smelling of Parker's perfume and sex, and opened the closet. Her clothes took up 3/4 of the space. Ronald! She flew into the room. Stop this at once! I pulled her suitcases out from under the bed, the whole 3 pieces they came with for a couple months, and opened the biggest one. What are you doing? She watched in panic as I started folding her blouses. Stop this right now. You have nothing more to do here, I said, methodically packing her things. You have no right. She tried to wrestle the blouse out of my hands. This is my stuff. We live here. Lived in, I corrected, folding her designer jeans neatly. Temporarily. Time's up. I'm not going anywhere. Her voice broke into a scream. You can't kick us out. Not you, I clarified, turning to her dresses. Just you, Allison. Benjamin can stay as long as he wants. He's my son. You can't separate us. She grabbed the dress out of my hands. If I leave, Benji will come with me. Maybe, I shrugged. It would be his choice. You monster! She threw the dress to the floor. An old vicious man trying to ruin someone else's happiness. Happiness? I looked at her in bewilderment. You call cheating happiness? Parker and I are in love, she blurted out. Real love, not like your boring son. I froze, looking at her. That's it. The truth at last. She doesn't even like Benjamin. All the more reason for you to leave, I said, going back to packing. If you don't love my son, why stay with him? Don't tell me what to do. She stomped her foot. Who are you to judge? I'm the father of the man you're betraying. You know what? She suddenly straightened up. looking at me with hatred. If you don't like living with us, leave. You're the one who's not here, not us. I continued to methodically stack her things, not reacting to her hysterics. Do you hear me? She grabbed a vase from the bedside table. Get out of our lives. Allison, I interrupted the packing and looked her in the eye. This is my home. I'm not going anywhere. But it's time for you to pack. She threw the vase at the wall. Shards flew across the room. I hate you, she screamed. I hate this house. I hate all these old, dusty things and pictures of your dead wife. I didn't answer, continuing packing. Her hysterics couldn't sway my decision. She paced the room, sobbing and shouting insults, but I was adamant. Within 40 minutes, I had packed almost all of her belongings from the bedroom. I'm calling Benjamin, she announced suddenly, grabbing the phone. Let's see what he says when he finds out his father is kicking his wife out on the street. I didn't bother to stop her. Part of me was even relieved. Let Benjamin come and deal with this situation. Let him find out the truth. Benji, she sobbed into the phone. Come over here right now. Your father's gone crazy. He's going through my things. He wants to kick me out of the house. That old goat wants to kick me out. Deal with him. She listened to his answer, sobbing and nodding. Yes, I'm waiting, she said through her tears. Hurry up, please. When she finished speaking, she looked at me triumphantly. He's on his way. And believe me, he won't be happy to hear that you're kicking out his wife. I shrugged and continued packing. There was still her stuff in the bathroom. What are you going to tell him? She asked defiantly. That you caught me with a lover? He wouldn't believe it. You realize he'll choose me over you. I didn't answer, methodically putting her makeup into a separate purse. Inside, I was preparing myself for a tough conversation with my son. Benjamin had always been soft, avoiding conflict, but even he had to see the truth. You're going to regret this, Allison hissed. I swear you'll regret crossing me, old man. I continued packing Allison's things, ignoring her wails and threats. She paced the room, begging me to stop, then hurling insults at me. At one point, she snatched a silk blouse out of my hands and tore it to shreds. See? She screamed. I'd rather destroy everything than let you kick me out. I silently pulled another blouse out of the closet. It drove her even more frantic. Her makeup was smeared with tears, her hair disheveled, no trace of the morning's elegant woman. Through the sound of the rain, I heard the sound of a car pulling up. Benjamin. I felt my insides tighten. Now I'd have to tell the truth. Watch his world fall apart. He's here! Allison rushed to the window. Now you're going to get what you deserve, old man. I sighed and put the unpacked suitcase aside. I looked around the room once more, at the scattered belongings, the broken vases, the mess like the aftermath of a hurricane. The front door slammed downstairs, hurried footsteps on the stairs. Allison! Dad! Benjamin's voice sounded worried. Benji! Finally! She rushed to the door. He's gone crazy! Look what he's doing! Benjamin appeared in the doorway, drenched, out of breath, with a look of confusion on his face. His gaze slid over the trashed room, the sprawled suitcases, his wife's crying face. What's going on here? He looked from me to Allison and back again. Your father is kicking me out. She threw herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck. He came over and started packing up my stuff, yelling at me to get out right away. I was so frightened, Benji. I watched the performance in silence. She was a pretty good actress, I'll give her that. Dad? Benjamin turned to me, hugging a sobbing Allison. Is it true? You're kicking Allison out? I nodded, seeing no point in denying the obvious. Why? He looked confused. What's wrong? Your wife brought a lover into our house, I said bluntly, without preamble. I found them together, here in your bed. There was a ringing silence. Benjamin froze, his hands dropping limply. Allison jerked away from him, her face contorted. What? Her voice rose an octave higher. He's lying. Benji, he's making this up to break us up. Benjamin looked from her to me and back again, as if he didn't know what he was talking about. Dad, are you serious? His voice shook. Absolutely. I looked him in the eye. I would never lie about something like that, son. I found your wife in bed with Parker Whitmore around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Parker. He blinked, like he was trying to comprehend what he was hearing. That realtor from the party? He's a shameless liar. Allison clutched at Benjamin's arm. I was at the interview. Parker just gave me a ride home because it was raining. Your father got it all wrong. I found you in bed, Allison. My voice was calm. Both of you with no clothes on. You were having sex in my son's bedroom. He's out of his mind, she started screaming. Benji, Would you really believe this old man over your wife? Benjamin stood motionless, his face pale. I could see the memories rushing behind his eyes, putting together the pieces of the puzzle he had ignored for so long. Was it true? He finally asked, looking at Allison. Did you cheat on me with Parker? Of course not. She shook her hands indignantly. How can you doubt me? After all we've been through together. Benjamin ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he always did in times of stress. Then why does Dad say he saw you? Because he hates me. She went on the offensive. From the very beginning, he wants to get rid of me, to take you back into his sole possession. Don't you see that? Benjamin, I stepped forward. I know it's hard for you to believe. I wouldn't want it to be true either. But facts are facts. What facts? Allison laughed hysterically. Do you have proof? Photographs? Records? Nothing. Just the word of a senile old man out of his mind against mine. I sighed. There really was no proof, except what I'd seen with my own eyes. But then I remembered. Check her cell phone, I told my son. There should be messages from Parker. What? She went pale. Don't you dare touch my phone. It's an invasion of privacy. If you have nothing to hide, I shrugged. Why not show me? Benjamin looked at his wife hesitantly. Ellie, He hesitated. Just to be clear. No, she backed away, clutching her purse to her chest. I'm not going to let you go through my phone just because your father made absurd accusations. That was a mistake. I could see the doubt brewing in Benjamin's eyes. Always open with her phone before. Now she was suddenly so desperate to defend it. Why not? He asked quietly. It's not like we're hiding anything from each other. That's what you've always said. It's a matter of principle. Her voice trembled. I won't grovel and prove my innocence. Ellie, he held out his hand. Please, I must know. No, she backed away. You're choosing his side? After everything he said to me here? I'm not choosing sides. Benjamin looked exhausted. I just wanted to know the truth. I watched their confrontation in silence, knowing I shouldn't interfere. Let my son come to an understanding. All right. Allison suddenly threw her purse on the bed. You want proof? Here, look. There's nothing in there. She pulled out her cell phone and held it out to Benjamin. I noticed her fingers quickly sliding across the screen before handing the device over, obviously deleting something. Benjamin took the phone and started browsing, his face tensed. Allison stood nearby, biting her lip nervously. There aren't any messages from Parker, he finally said, raising his eyes to me. Of course there are, I nodded. She just deleted them. No, she didn't. She was outraged. I just unlocked my phone. Benji, check the recently deleted messages, I suggested. Or call history. He frowned and stared at the phone again. His fingers slid across the screen, opening different apps. Allison was flailing around like a cage. Stop it! She suddenly snatched the phone out of his hands. I'm not going to let you interrogate me. But it was too late. I saw the look on her son's face. He'd obviously discovered something. Why did you call Parker 3 times today? He asked quietly. And why are these calls not in the contact list, but hidden? She turned pale. Yeah, it's for work. He's helping me find job openings. Work? Benjamin shook his head. The call list said the last call was at 12:30, lasted 2 minutes. What did you two talk about? She stammered. He said he could give me a ride home from the interview because it was starting to rain. I said yes. That's it? Benjamin looked her straight in the eye. Just that? Yes, she splayed her hands. What else could we talk about? Benjamin turned to me. Dad, what exactly did you see? I didn't want to go into details, but I knew I had to be honest. I saw them arrive together under the same umbrella, laughing and hugging. Heard them go up to your bedroom. Allison said, the old man's in the library until 3, and Parker offered to help her get her wet clothes off. 15 minutes later, I went upstairs and found them together, in bed. Benjamin's face contorted in pain. Ellie? His voice shook. It's a lie. She shook her head desperately. It wasn't like that. Parker just came in to warm up, and I did change my clothes because I was soaking wet, but it was nothing like that. Then why didn't you tell me Parker had come by? Benjamin asked quietly. Why did you deny he was even here? She opened her mouth but couldn't find anything to say. Benji, you don't believe that old geezer, do you? She finally blurted out. He's always hated me. He made this whole thing up to break us up. Why would I do that? I asked calmly. What would I gain by destroying your marriage? You want your son back. She pointed her finger at me. You want him to stay here with you forever, to nurse you to death. Admit it. I shook my head. All I want is for my son to be happy, with or without you. That's his choice. But he deserves to know the truth. Benjamin stood with his shoulders slumped, as if he were carrying a heavy weight. I could see the agonizing struggle going on in his head, wanting to believe the woman he loved, but the facts were stacked against him. Show me your messages, he said at last, reaching for her phone. No, she recoiled. Why? His voice became harder. If Dad's lying, there won't be anything compromising. I don't have to prove anything, she shouted. You have to believe me, not him. I want to believe, Benjamin said quietly, but I need the truth. Suddenly, he made a sudden movement and snatched the phone out of her hands. She shrieked and tried to take it away, but he turned away, quickly flipping through the screen. Give it back now, she pounded him on the back. This is illegal, invasion of privacy. Benjamin paid no attention, concentrating on the contents of the phone. I watched his expression change from doubt to disbelief, then to shock, and finally to deep, all-consuming pain. I can't wait until tomorrow. The old man will be at the library, my husband at work. The whole day is just for us. He read aloud the message sent yesterday. Miss your hands. 3 weeks in Miami will be wonderful. No old men and nerdy husbands. Allison stiffened, her face turning white. Benji, I can explain. Explain what? He looked up at her with eyes full of pain. That you were planning a trip with your lover while I was working overtime to pay our bills? It's not what you think. She was desperately looking for an excuse. Parker, he's stalking me. He's the one writing all this to me. I just didn't know how to tell you. Then why are your answers here? Benjamin leafed on. I can't stop thinking about our last meeting. You're driving me crazy. Benji never understood what I needed. Did Parker write that too? She was silent, cornered by her own words. And those pictures? His voice trembled. Did you send him nude pictures of yourself? Benji, she tried to take his hand, but he pulled away. I can explain everything. It was a moment of weakness. I was confused. A moment of weakness? He grinned bitterly. There's 3 months of correspondence here. You've been seeing him all this time? She didn't answer, lowering her eyes. Jesus. Benjamin ran his hand over his face. 3 months. The whole time we've been living here. You told me you were looking for a job and then you... I did have interviews. She popped her head up. It's just not always. He turned away, unable to look at her. I saw his shoulders shudder. He was holding back tears. Why? He finally asked quietly. If you didn't love me anymore, why didn't you just leave? Yeah, I love you, Benji. Her voice softened. In my own way. But you're always at work. You don't pay attention to me. And Parker, he makes me feel alive. Okay, he nodded as if he understood. Then it's my own fault. I worked too hard to provide for us after you quit. That's not what I meant. She tried to correct herself. It's just that we're estranged. You have to understand. Understand what? He looked up. That while I was working 2 jobs to make a living, you were having fun with another man? At my father's house? She was silent, unable to find the words. Benjamin threw her phone on the bed and sank into a chair, covering his face with his hands. I wanted to walk over, put my hand on his shoulder, but I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. Maybe he needed space. Allison shifted her gaze from me to her husband and back again, her face contorted with anger. Are you satisfied, Ronald? She hissed. Did you get what you wanted? Destroyed our family? I didn't destroy your family, I replied quietly. You did it yourself when you decided to deceive my son. You vile, evil old man. She took a step toward me. You've always wanted to get rid of me. From day one. Stop it, Allison. Benjamin raised his head. Just, stop blaming everyone else. Are you taking his side? She turned sharply toward him. After 3 years of marriage, you're choosing him over me? I'm not choosing sides, he said tiredly. I'm just trying to realize that my wife slept with another man, at my father's house, and was planning a vacation with her lover. She suddenly changed tactics, dropping to her knees in front of him. Benji, honey, her voice became soft, pleading. I was wrong, I admit it. It was foolishness, a moment of weakness. I never really loved Parker. It was just a fling, nothing serious. He looked at her with bewilderment. Is that supposed to make me feel better? That you betrayed me for nothing serious? I'm sorry, really. She took his hands in hers. We can start over. I'll break up with Parker. We'll find our own place. Get out of here. Give our marriage a second chance. I could see the doubt in my son's eyes. Despite the pain and betrayal, part of him still loved that woman, wanted to believe it could be fixed. I don't know, Ellie. He shook his head. I'm not sure I can trust you again. You have to. She clutched his hands. For the sake of everything we had, for the sake of our future. Benjamin looked exhausted, unable to make a decision here and now. I need to think, he finally said. This whole thing is too much. Of course, she stroked his cheek. I understand. Let's just calm down. Maybe have dinner together, talk? He pulled away from her touch. No, I need to be alone. Yeah, I'm gonna go for a walk. In this rain? She frowned. Benji, you'll get soaked. Never mind. He stood up. I must clear my head. He moved toward the door, as if oblivious to my presence. I stepped back, letting him pass. At the threshold, he stopped. Dad, he turned to me. Thank you for telling the truth. I nodded, unable to find the words. He walked down the stairs, and soon the front door slammed. Allison was left standing in the middle of the room, her face a mask of anger and disappointment. I hope you're satisfied, she hissed, glaring at me. You ruined everything. I didn't, I repeated. You did. Benjamin returned late that night, soaked to the skin, eyes red. I waited for him in the living room, pretending to read a book. In reality, I just sat staring at the same page for hours, listening to every rustle. Allison locked herself in their bedroom after he left. I could hear her talking to someone on the phone, first hissing furiously, then sobbing, then shifting to screaming again, most likely to Parker. Later, she came downstairs, gave me a searing look, and walked silently into the kitchen. She came back with a bottle of wine and locked herself upstairs again. Dad, Benjamin nodded at me, shaking the water out of my hair. Are you awake? Been waiting for you. I put the book aside. How are you? He shrugged as if he couldn't find the words. I don't know. I'm in a daze, like this isn't happening to me. Sit down. I pointed to the chair across from me. I'm soaking wet. Would you like some tea or something stronger? Whiskey if you have it. He sank into the chair, not caring if his wet clothes ruined the upholstery. I nodded, stood up, and poured him 2 fingers of the old scotch I kept for special occasions. It was hard to call it special, though, more like grief. Thank you. He took the glass, took a sip, and grimaced. I called Parker. I waited silently for him to continue. At first, he didn't pick up. Benjamin stared into the glass, as if he could find the answers to all my questions there. Then he answered. He said it never happened, that you made it all up, that I shouldn't believe the out-of-my-mind old man. I chuckled. Predictable. I asked why there were hundreds of messages from him in Allison's phone then. He said it was professional correspondence. Benjamin grinned bitterly. I quoted a couple of particularly professional messages to him. He hung up. I see, I nodded. So, what did you decide? He took another sip. Called back half an hour later, from a different number. He answered, not knowing it was me. I introduced myself as a potential client. Set up a meeting at a bar across town. He accepted. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. I didn't expect my son to be so cunning. When I got there, he was already there, Benjamin continued. He saw me and tried to run away. I caught him at the exit. And then what happened? I stepped forward. Nothing much, he shrugged. Said I'd break his nose if I didn't hear the truth. He confessed. They've been dating for 3 months now, ever since we moved in with you. I nodded silently. That's about what I thought. He didn't even apologize. Benjamin shook his head. He said it just happened, that Allison was unhappily married, that he didn't mean to hurt anyone. People will always find excuses for what they do, I said quietly. You know what the worst part is? He looked up at me. He said they were planning a trip to Miami, with the money I was saving for a down payment on a house. I didn't say anything. What can I say? She took it out of our joint account 2 weeks ago. He finished his whiskey in one gulp. Said it was to consult with a financial advisor, to optimize our spending. Benji. 3 years. He shook his head. 3 years I believed every word she said, worked my ass off to provide for us. And she... His voice shook. I got up and sat beside him, putting my hand on his shoulder. I'm such a fool. He dropped his head in his hands. No, son. I squeezed his shoulder. You just loved. There's no shame in that. I didn't notice anything. All those interviews, the strange phone calls, her sudden enthusiasm. How could I have been so blind? We see what we want to see, I replied, especially when it comes to loved ones. We sat in silence. Outside the window, the rain was gradually subsiding, with only occasional gusts of wind throwing drops against the glass. "What are you going to do?" I finally asked. "I don't know," he sighed. "Part of me wants to believe that we can fix this, that she really was wrong, that she gave in to a moment of weakness." 3 months is a long time, I said. "Yeah," he grinned wryly. "You know, when I held her cell phone in my hands and read all those messages, it wasn't my Allison. It was like a completely different person, cruel, calculating. She was texting him that I was a bore, that sex with me was a chore, that you're an old man out of his mind who'll soon kick the skates off and leave us the house." I shuddered. I hadn't expected it to be that bad. "I'm sorry, Benji." "I'm not." He straightened up. "You know, after I talked to Parker, I went to the bar. I wanted to get drunk. But instead, I just sat there thinking, going over the years in my head. And I realized that Allison had always been like that. I just didn't want to see." He got up and walked across the room. "Remember when she didn't come to my mom's funeral? Said she had an important presentation she couldn't miss. And I defended her to you. Said you didn't understand the modern world where careers are so important." I remembered. It was the first serious crack in my son and I's relationship. "Or when she lost the mom ring I gave her for our anniversary," he continued. "Remember how she cried, saying she was so sorry? And then a month later, I saw her wearing a new Tiffany bracelet. Convinced myself it was a coincidence. I didn't say anything to let him talk. She never loved me, Dad." He paused by the fireplace, staring at the fire. "I was a stepping stone, a way to go higher. Only I wasn't as successful as she'd hoped." "Benji." "No, it's okay." He turned to me with a determined look on his face. "I've made up my mind. Tomorrow I'll tell her I'm filing for divorce." "Are you sure?" I had to ask, even though I was inwardly in favor of his decision. "Absolutely," he nodded. "And another thing, I want her to move out, immediately." "Do you?" "If you don't mind, I'd like to stay for a while." He looked unsure. "Till I can sort out the paperwork and find a new place to live." "Of course, son." I stood up and hugged him. "This is your home. Always has been and always will be." That night, we both didn't sleep well. I could hear Benjamin stirring in the guest room where I'd made his bed. Allison came out of the bedroom a couple times, knocking on his door, but he didn't open. Toward morning, I finally fell into a restless sleep. I woke up to the sounds of arguing. Benjamin and Allison were yelling at each other in the living room. I hurriedly got dressed and went downstairs. "You can't just kick me out," Allison yelled. "I'm your wife, the wife who cheated on me for 3 months. Benjamin's voice sounded unusually firm. "The wife who stole my savings so she could go on vacation with her lover. I was going to give it all back." She flailed her arms. "It was a moment of weakness, I told you. Benji, you can't throw away 3 years of marriage over one mistake." "This isn't about cheating, Allison." He shook his head. "It's about who you really are. I talked to Parker. He told me everything." She turned pale. What exactly?" "Everything." He crossed his arms over his chest. "About how you laughed at me, how you planned to use my money, how you called me and my father names." "He's lying." She turned to shrieking. "He's just getting revenge because I said I was choosing you." "That's enough, Allison." Benjamin shook his head tiredly. "Just stop lying. I've seen your messages. I know everything." I stood in the doorway, not interfering. This was their battle. "Okay." She suddenly changed tactics, her voice quiet, pleading. "I was wrong. I admit it. But we can fix this, Benji. We can start over. I'll break up with Parker, I swear. He means nothing to me." "This isn't about Parker," Benjamin repeated. "It's about you. It's that you're capable of doing this to the man who loves you." "I'll change." She stepped toward him and tried to take his hand, but he pulled away. "For you. For us. We're gone, Allison." He shook his head. "I'm filing for divorce." She froze, looking at him in disbelief. "You can't," she whispered. "You can't just—" "I can and I will," he was adamant. "Now I want you to pack your things and go." "Go where?" She flailed her arms. "I don't have a job. I have no money." "You have the money you withdrew from our account," he reminded her dryly. "And I'm sure Parker would be happy to take you in." "You're throwing me out on the street?" She switched to a dramatic tone. "After everything we've been through?" "I'm asking you to leave my father's house," he emphasized the last words. "The house you cheated on me in. The house you tried to change to suit you, without respecting me or him." She turned to me, noticing my presence. "Are you satisfied, Ronald?" she hissed. "Turned your son against me, destroyed your family." "I didn't destroy your family, Allison," I replied calmly. "And I didn't turn Benjamin against me. All he had to do was see the truth for himself. Fuck both of you, she suddenly exploded. You're a pair of boots, a pathetic loser and his daddy, a senile old man out of his mind. You think I'm going to cry and beg? Ha! She straightened up with her chin up. You know what, Benji? I'm glad it worked out this way. I'm glad I can finally be honest. I never needed you. Not you. Not your pathetic ambition. Not your pennies you call savings. Benjamin was silent, looking at her with a kind of detached interest, as if he were watching an unfamiliar, exotic creature. Parker is a real man, she continued. Successful, ambitious. With him, I'll have everything I dreamed of. Not this miserable life in a nursing home. If he's so wonderful, why don't you go to him right now? Benjamin asked calmly. This seemed to confuse her. She had expected pain, rage, tears, anything but not this calm. Yeah, she stammered. I will. Good, he nodded. Then pack your things. I'll call you a cab. Don't bother, she snorted. I can manage on my own. She turned and ran up the stairs. We heard her slam the bedroom door loudly. Benjamin sank heavily onto the couch. Are you okay? I sat down next to him. It's weird, he shook his head. It's like watching a movie about someone else's life. It'll pass. I put my hand on his shoulder. It just takes time. There were sounds from upstairs, things falling, smashing, cabinet doors slamming. Allison was apparently smashing everything in her path. I'm sorry about this, son, I said quietly. I'm sorry too, he smiled sadly. But you know, there's something liberating. Like I'd finally seen a truth I'd long refused to see. 40 minutes later, Allison came downstairs with 2 huge suitcases. Her face was swollen with tears, but she held herself with defiant dignity. I'm only taking the essentials, she announced. I'll send for the rest later. Okay, Benjamin nodded. Leave the keys on the table. She threw the bunch of keys with such force that they slid across the surface and fell to the floor. You'll regret this, she hissed, glaring at her husband. When the resentment wears off, you'll realize you made a mistake. Maybe, he shrugged. But it will be my mistake. She turned to me. And you, Ronald. Her eyes narrowed. You're going to regret coming between me and Benji. I didn't come between you, Allison, I replied calmly. I was just showing my son the truth he deserved to know. You destroyed our family. Her voice shook. You. She didn't finish the sentence, bursting into tears. It was no longer an act. It was real, desperate tears. Benjamin twitched, instinctively wanting to comfort, but stopped himself. The cab's here, he said, looking out the window. Allison wiped away her tears, squared her shoulders, and picked up her suitcases. Benji, she looked at her husband one last time. Don't do this. Give us one more chance. Goodbye, Allison. He turned away. She stood there for another second, then turned abruptly and walked out the door. We watched in silence out the window as she got into the cab. The car moved, and Allison Radford disappeared from our lives. Or so it seemed to us. The next few days passed in a strange daze. Benjamin contacted an attorney and began divorce proceedings. Allison sent hired movers to pick up the rest of her belongings, but she didn't show up. The house was quieter, calmer, but a heaviness hung in the air. I tried to help my son as much as I could. I cooked his favorite dishes, did not impose conversations, but was always there if he needed to talk. Sometimes we would just sit in silence, me with a book, him with his laptop, just like the old days when he was a teenager and did his homework in my office. The 4th day after Allison left, the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there stood Parker Whitmore, pale and nervous. Mr. Hampshire, he shuffled from foot to foot. I need to speak to Benjamin. Why? I took my time inviting him in. It's about Allison. He glanced nervously over his shoulder. Please, it's important. I reluctantly let him into the house. Benjamin, hearing voices, came out into the hallway. At the sight of Parker, his face hardened. What are you doing here? Benjamin, Parker looked exhausted. I have to warn you. Allison, she's not herself. What do you mean? Benjamin frowned. She moved in with me after you broke up. Parker ran a hand through his hair. But it all went wrong. She's obsessed with revenge. Says you and her father ruined her life. That you have to pay. What exactly is pay? I asked, feeling an unpleasant chill run down my spine. I don't know. Parker shook his head. She's always on the phone with some lawyer. Something about a partition suit, about the house. I own the house, I frowned. It has nothing to do with their marriage. That's not what she thinks. Parker looked guilty. She says she has some paperwork, that Benjamin promised her a share in the house. Bullshit, Benjamin cut him off. I never said any such thing. She was also in contact with some kind of social service, Parker continued. Something about an elderly person's inability to make decisions for themselves. I froze. Is she trying to declare me incompetent? Why are you telling us this? Benjamin asked suspiciously. You were in bed with her. Parker sighed. I thought I loved her, but these days have shown me who she really is. She scares me. Her obsession with revenge, her plans. What plans? I stepped forward. I don't know the details, he shook his head. But this morning I heard her on the phone talking about some plan to set the house on fire for insurance. What? Benjamin paled. I'm not sure she meant it, Parker hastened to add. But she's not herself. That's why I'm here, to warn you. Why should we believe you? Benjamin asked. You lied to me before, slept with my wife. Why are you suddenly so honest now? Because I'm afraid, Parker answered simply. Afraid of what she's capable of. I'm sorry. For everything. My son and I looked at each other. It was hard to believe this man, but something in his eyes said he wasn't lying, at least not right now. Thank you for the warning, Benjamin finally said. We'll be on the lookout. Parker nodded and headed for the door. At the threshold, he stopped. One more thing. She knows where you keep the spare key, under the flower pot on the terrace. With those words, he left. My son and I stood in the hallway, digesting what we'd heard. Do you think he's telling the truth? Benjamin asked. I don't know, I shook my head, but I'll keep the key just in case. It had been 2 months since Allison had left our house. Winter had given way to spring, and the first tulips, Vivian's favorite flowers, were starting to come up in my garden. I spent a lot of time on the terrace, watching nature awaken from its long sleep. Benjamin still lived with me. The divorce was moving slowly. Allison was doing everything she could to drag out the process and squeeze out the maximum. She hired an aggressive attorney who demanded half of Benjamin's entire estate, including a non-existent share of my house. She claims I promised her part of the house as a wedding gift. Benjamin shook his head as he looked over the documents he'd brought from his attorney. Can you believe that? And she has proof? I frowned. Just her word. He set the papers aside. But that's not enough. The house is officially in your name, and there were no transfers or promises in writing. The lawyer says we have nothing to worry about. I nodded, though the worry never left me. Allison was proving to be far more conniving and vindictive than I had realized. After Parker's visit, we'd taken precautions, changed the locks, installed a rudimentary alarm system. I even checked my insurance, fearing the threat of arson. Fortunately, nothing of the sort happened. Maybe Parker was exaggerating, or maybe Allison was just making empty threats in a fit of rage. But she found other ways to poison our lives. She started calling mutual acquaintances, telling them how my son and I had kicked her out of the house and onto the street, how I had manipulated Benjamin into turning him against his wife. In her version, she was the innocent victim, and I was the evil, controlling old man who couldn't stand the fact that my son had started his own family. Lorna called today, Benjamin sighed one evening. Lorna was his co-worker's wife. They often had dinner together as a couple. Said Allison had been sobbing on her shoulder all night, telling me how you made me choose between her and you. And what did you say? I set the book aside. The truth, he shrugged. That Allison was cheating on me with Parker, that you just showed me the proof, that the decision to divorce was mine and you had nothing to do with it. Did she believe it? I don't know, he sighed. There are always two sides to a story, she said. That sometimes people make mistakes, and forgiveness is a sign of strength, not weakness. I snorted. Typical reaction of an outsider who doesn't understand the whole situation. What do you think? I asked cautiously. About forgiveness? He hesitated, looking out the window at my garden. You know, at first I really thought about it, about giving her a second chance. We all make mistakes, don't we? I nodded without interrupting. But it's not the cheating, he continued. It's about the way she acted afterward. No remorse. Nothing but lies, manipulation, trying to make me look guilty. And now these threats, demands, denigrating both of us in front of our friends. It shows who she really is. I agree, I said quietly. Besides, he smiled sadly, I remember your relationship with your mom, how you respected each other, supportive. We're a team. I never had that with Allison. I just didn't want to see it. I felt a lump come up in my throat. Vivian would have been happy to hear those words. She always said our marriage would be an example for her son when he grew up. The relationship between Benjamin and me was changing too. At first there was awkwardness. He felt guilty for bringing Allison into my home, for her behavior, for all the conflicts. I felt guilty for shattering his illusions by revealing the truth about the affair. Gradually, we began to find a new balance. We often sat in the living room in the evenings, discussing books, politics, his work. He helped me in the garden on weekends. We cooked dinner together, using Vivian's old recipes. Slowly, day by day, we rebuilt the connection we had between us before Allison came along. One day, almost 3 months after she left, Benjamin and I were sorting through old boxes in the attic. I'd been meaning to clean it up for a long time. Among the dusty books and photo albums was a box of Vivian's things that I hadn't been able to throw away after her death. Her scarves, gloves, a few pieces of jewelry she rarely wore. Look, I pulled out a small velvet box. Your mother's wedding ring. She stopped wearing it in recent years, her fingers swollen with arthritis. She asked me to save it for your future wife. I opened the box. A simple gold ring with a small diamond sparkled in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the attic window. I wanted to give it to you before I married Allison, I confessed. But something stopped me. Some kind of premonition, I guess. Benjamin took the box, examining the ring. I'm glad you didn't give it away, he said quietly. It wouldn't have fit her. Not in size, he smiled weakly, but in substance. I nodded, realizing what he meant. Keep it. I closed the box and placed it in his palm. For the right person, someday. It was an important moment between us, not just handing over a family heirloom, but acknowledging that life goes on, that he would have a new future, a new love, a real one this time. That same night, his lawyer called with the news. Allison had finally agreed to the terms of the divorce. She would get her share of the jointly acquired property, not as much as she wanted, and relinquish her claim to the house. In exchange, Benjamin didn't demand the money she withdrew from their account be returned. You know what the weirdest thing is? Benjamin said, ending the conversation. I feel a sense of relief. Not joy, not grief, but just release. I nodded understandingly. Sometimes the end is not tragedy, but deliverance. The next week, a letter arrived from Allison, not to me, to Benjamin. A long, emotional message full of apologies, promises to change, declarations of love. She said she'd realized her mistakes, that she'd been in therapy, that she wanted to make things right. What do you think? Benjamin asked, showing me the letter. What do you think? I didn't want to influence his decision. I don't believe a word of it. He folded the sheets and put them back in the envelope. It's still the same Allison, just a different tactic. I agreed, but I didn't say anything. He had to come to this on his own. You know what surprises me? He shook his head. Not a word of apology to you, for everything she did in your house, for the way she treated you. That's telling, isn't it? Yes, I nodded. Very much so. He didn't answer the letter. A week later, another one came with a different tone. Angry, accusatory, threatening. Allison said he'd regret rejecting her, that she'd find a way to make him suffer, that his decrepit daddy wouldn't protect him from her wrath. That's the real Allison, Benjamin grinned bitterly, showing me the letter. No masks. I read it and shook my head. Poor lost soul. So much rage, so much bitterness. She'll never be truly happy with that attitude toward life. After another month, the divorce was finalized. Benjamin celebrated with a quiet dinner, just the two of us, a nice bottle of wine, and memories of Vivian that could now be shared without guilt or awkwardness. You know, he said as we sat on the terrace after dinner, I think Mom had something to do with it. In what way? I smiled. Well, she always saw right through people, didn't she? He looked up at the stars. I remember her telling me as a kid, Benji, always trust your heart, but check with your head. I forgot that advice when I met Allison. I was blindsided. It happens to the best of us, I shrugged. But then you helped me see, he turned to me. And I'm grateful for that, even if the truth was painful. Sometimes pain is necessary for healing. I raised my glass. To the truth, no matter how bitter. To the truth, he touched his glass to mine. We sat in silence, savoring the moment. A warm spring evening, the scent of a blooming garden, the twinkling of stars. Dad, Benjamin said suddenly, I'm thinking of moving. I felt a pang of disappointment, but I tried not to show it. Of course you are. You're young. You need your own space. No, that's not what I mean. He shook his head. I've been offered a promotion at the Portland branch of our firm. It's a great career opportunity. Portland? I smiled, hiding my sadness. It's far away. Yeah, he nodded. But you know what? I said no. Why? I was genuinely surprised. Because I belong here, he answered simply. With you, in this house. For now, at least. Benji, I shook my head. I don't want you to sacrifice your career for me. I'm not sacrificing, he smiled. I'm making a choice. And then we're a team, right? Like you always said. I felt tears come to my eyes. My boy, my grown, wise son. A team, I nodded. Always. Allison never gave up trying to get back into Benjamin's life. She'd call in the middle of the night in tears, or wait outside the office, or ask mutual friends to talk to him. When he did not respond, tried to cause jealousy, posted photos on social networks with other men, marked in expensive restaurants, exotic resorts. It all seems so petty now, Benjamin remarked when another mutual acquaintance said, "Hello from Allison. It's like I'm looking at my past life through upside-down binoculars. It's getting smaller and smaller. I've watched my son heal from a toxic relationship. As his confidence, his sense of humor, his interest in life returned. He started exercising more, renewed old friendships that had faded during the marriage, even enrolled in cooking classes, always wanting to learn how to cook really well. Allison was slowly becoming just an unpleasant memory, fading with each passing day. She never apologized to us. She never admitted her guilt. To her, we were the villains who ruined her happiness. But it was her right to live in a world of her own illusions. 6 months after she left, Benjamin and I were sitting on the terrace, enjoying a warm summer evening. The garden was in bloom, filling the air with fragrance. I looked at my son, at his calm, peaceful face, and thought about the vicissitudes of life. If someone had asked me a year ago if I considered myself a happy man, I probably would have answered in the negative. A widower living alone, clinging to the memories of the past. And now? Right now, I felt a strange peacefulness. Not euphoria, not raucous happiness, but a quiet joy that life goes on. That the truth, no matter how bitter, is always better than the sweetest lie. "What's on your mind, Dad?" Benjamin interrupted my thoughts. "About life," I smiled. "About how sometimes the most painful events lead to healing." He nodded, understanding without further explanation. "You know, I sometimes think I should thank Allison," he said suddenly. "For what?" I wondered. "For showing me what a relationship shouldn't be," he shrugged. "If it hadn't been for this ordeal, I probably never would have truly appreciated what I had and wouldn't know what I wanted in the future." I nodded. There was a wisdom in his words that only comes through suffering. As Vivian had said, some lessons can only be learned on your own skin. And also, he looked into my eyes, "I want to thank you for having the courage to show me the truth, even though you knew how much it would hurt. For not being afraid to be honest when it would have been easier to keep quiet. I just wanted you to be happy, son," I said quietly. "Really happy." "I know," he smiled. "And I will be. Not right away, but I will be." We were silent again, watching the sun slowly sink below the horizon, painting the sky with golden and pink colors. There was still a whole life ahead of us, a long and hopefully happy one for him, maybe shorter for me, but no less precious. A life without toxic relationships, without lies, without manipulation. A life based on mutual respect and honesty. I thought of Vivian, of how proud she would be of her son now. How happy she would be to see him freed from an unhealthy relationship. How she would approve of my actions, despite how painful they were. In that moment, I realized one simple truth. Sometimes you have to have the courage to rip the bandage off, even though you know it will hurt. Because that's the only way wounds can truly heal. It's the only way we can move on, toward a new future free of the ghosts of the past. Allison will forever be a part of our history, a painful chapter that cannot be erased. But she no longer defines our lives, dictates our decisions, or darkens our days. It has become a lesson we have learned and left behind, and we just get on with our lives. Day by day, step by step, towards a new dawn, new possibilities, new hope, together, like a family, a real family.